Welcome to Jim and Rob Review Movies. Here you'll find the quick, spoiler-free review of the film Jim and I looked at during our weekly live show. Enjoy. Recorded in the socially distant studios of the Rob Christensen Radio Network, it's Jim and Rob Overanalyze the Movies, the short version. All right. As I said before, today we are going to be looking at The Green Knight. Let's see, from IMDb. Here's the logline from IMDb. A fantasy retelling of the medieval story of Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. Oh, thank you for that accuracy. Here's the logline I wrote. All right. The king's nephew, Gawain, accepts the challenge of the Green Knight on Christmas Day, no less, and embarks on a quest for honor in this stylized retelling of the Arthurian legend. It was adapted and directed by David Lowery. It stars, of course, Dev Patel. It also stars Alicia Vikander, Joel Edgerton, Sarita Choudhury, Sean Harris, Barry Keoghan, I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly, Ralph Ineson, and Kate Dickie. I will say this, the whole color scheme of all their posters and that reminds me of the color scheme of Bowfingers, the Eddie Murphy, Chubby Rain look-alike character. But anyway, back to the actual show. Now we'll get into the social nutrition checklist. Speaking of reframe stamp, would it get a reframe stamp? No, it would not. Was it union made? I am not 100% sure. I've actually reached out, on Twitter, to a couple of Irish, because it was shot in Ireland. So I reached out to a couple of Irish film technician, TV technician, trade unions to find out if it was a unionized set. I don't know. So I really can't say one way or another. Let's move on. Does it pass the Bechdel test? I don't believe it does. Although there's one scene that may give you that impression, I will argue to the end of my days that it fails. But I won't get into it now. That would be spoiler zone territory, even though it's in the first act. So that's a big fat X there. And then last but certainly not least, is this a class-conscious film? No, again, it is not. It is an Arthurian legend. It's a reasonably faithful retelling of what would have been another 100 years prior, a chanson de geste, basically like the Song of Roland or something. So no, it's a bunch of nobles telling each other stories about how cool they are. So that gives us right now, because I don't know about the union made thing, I can only give it a score of 0, which I think is the second time in a row we've had a 0 or a 25%. Anyway, now with that out of the way, let's, I think I got everyone. Let's bring Brian back. Unmute the fellow. And, give us your quick review. Give us your 90-second, hey, this is what I thought of this flick, man.
I'm going to use one of your main phrases that I've sort of adopted because you use this phrase. This is a literal and figurative long, hard slog. I mean, it's one of those old school. He's literally slogging across the landscape, across through the bog, through the swamp, through the forest. It feels like that. This is a film that's 2 hours and 10 minutes long, but it feels like it's 4 hours long. I fell asleep, and this is just, I have to admit, I fell asleep 3 times 3 whole times in the first hour of this film. I was fully caffeinated. I was ready to go. It was middle of the afternoon. It was a 3 o'clock something showing. I fell asleep 3 times in the first hour. So that just goes to show how slow of a slog this thing is. It was not a good film. The fact that you already gave it 0 for 4 on the social checklist, I'd say as an entertainment value, that's what it was for me. So
okay, all right.
3 times I fell asleep in the first hour. 3 times.
For myself, you know what? Yes, it is. It starts slow. It is a bit of a slog. That said, even though I do have problems with this film, and we'll get into them later as we get into the weeds, into the spoiler zone, I felt, Brian, that it starts slow and it just kind of remains sort of a plodding pace. That said, it is a moody psychological piece. It barely has a plot. Like, it really is a kind of, well, this happened, and then this, and this, and this, and then. But I think in part because it's not supposed to be, let us get into a great narrative, and more about a psychological look at the hero's journey. And so I kind of, in the end, I kind of came around on it. The first act, I was much like yourself, not falling asleep, but going, oh dear God, don't tell me this is it. By the end of it, I'm like, that wasn't bad. Couple days later, I went and saw it Friday evening. Couple days later, I'm like, that has more weight than I was willing to give it. And I think part of it is, but something that's really important, and this maybe is the time to, talk about whether or not I think it's worth someone's time. I would say to anyone in the audience, it is worth your time, but be prepared for more of a psychological exploration, a psychological character study, an exploration of manhood, than wow, there's an axe and it's knights, and so there must be, and it's King Arthur, so where's my action? That is not this movie. So, but I'd like to know, I think you gave us that answer, but I'll ask again. Do you think it's worth the audience's time, or you just think it's just too slow, just too...
No.
Are you about to drift off again?
Wait, no, sorry. No, this I think you're being very kind by saying it's a psychological examination. Most of this film is him walking through the woods, and literally what they'll do with the camera, and they do this several times.
Well, there's some moors.
They have
and a swamp.
They literally have him walking, and they'll do like a 360 slow pan around for no real reason other than just to show, it's cloudy weather here too. I don't get me wrong, I love the fact that they actually went and shot on location. I love the fact that they're using a lot of practical effects in the filmmaking of this, and the costumes look really good. But it's
short
so
answer, yay or nay?
No.
Worth the audience's time? No.
Nay. And I would actually push back a little bit on the psychological part, because I don't really think he's contemplating that much. There's not a whole lot of inner struggle or anything for him to go through.
Now, if this quick review only whetted your appetite and you want to dive deeper into this film, check out the replay of this episode of Jim and Rob Overanalyze Movies. Every show we go beyond the review to get into the craft, the story, and the meaning of the films we watch. And if you subscribe and ring that bell, you'll get the heads up in time to join us and the best chat on the internet live. See what I did there? Anyway, that's about it. Thanks so much for checking out our review. And, bye-bye.